Older Australian workers are worried about losing their jobs and their ability to find a new one should that happen. The Australia Talks national survey, which involved nearly 55,000 respondents, found that rather than talking their abilities up in their resumes, many older Australians are dumbing theirs down. To discuss some of the barriers facing older Australians, I'm joined from Adelaide by Chief Advocate for National Seniors Australia, Henscke. Ian, lying on a resume is nothing new, but many older Australians are dumbing their resumes down. Why is this?
Well, look, we know that there is a big problem out there with ageism. I mean, your last story just illustrated that as well. We're hearing stories in the Aged Care Royal Commission about people being treated with disrespect. Many older Australians feel that they are not being respected. They feel that if they go for a job and they've got a bit of grey hair, that that'll count against them. And so they try and hide that. In fact, the last two age discrimination commissioners, the present one and the previous one, said that one of their biggest complaints that they received was discrimination in the workplace. Our organisation, National Seniors, did a survey back in 2012 and they said that 16% of the people surveyed, so you're talking about 1 in 7 people, were told directly that they thought they were too old for the job. I mean, so look, we know this is a problem. The question now is, how do we deal with it? And in fact, your survey, the ABC survey of 55,000 people, is an extraordinary sample size to actually to do this survey with, and then to find out that it's still there is worrying. And the question now is, what do we do about it?
Why don't people or companies want to employ older Australians? Why are they too old?
Well, you've got to ask yourself some of the questions that go on. I was recently told that one of the major banks here in Australia has actually put out a policy where they want to reveal the age profile of their workforce so they can then say to people, we do match the broader community. But you will find that a lot of people will employ younger people rather than older people because they think that they're more enthusiastic, or they think various other reasons that they've got. I mean, for example, if you go to a restaurant in Australia and you have a look at the waiting staff, it's very rare that you come across a mature age person who's working even a part-time job. Now, if you go to Europe or to America, you'll find that they will employ older people. Very commonly they'll do that. I think Australians have actually got a problem with ageism, and I think, as I said before, the reason we've got problems with the Royal Commission, the reason we've got pension poverty, the reason we've got a whole range of problems in Australia is because I think we've got a problem with ageism.
So what can be done to stem this?
Well, the government's tried a number of things over the years. You might remember a couple of budgets ago, they said that they're going to give a $10,000 incentive to employers to take on a mature age Australian who'd been out of work for X number of months. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the way to go because they didn't seem to work those sort of things. I think it's far better to try and tackle the problem at the root cause, which is have discussions like this and recognise that older people actually have got a great number of skills. They are very good people to have around, and any workplace should have a range of people in them. I mean, we don't accept, for example, racism, but we seem to be more acceptant of ageism. I mean, even if you look at public service, for example, you'll see that the public service over recent years has had targeted redundancies of older workers, pushing them out effectively. A lot of the time when they offer redundancies, they'll come up to people and tap them on the shoulder and say, look, it might be time to move on. I mean, this goes on, and it goes on in organisations like the ABC, it goes on in the health department, it goes on in government departments. I think government should lead by example and do what I was talking about before, this bank is doing. I won't name the bank, but I'll tell you it's one of the big four. And that bank has actually said that it is going to publish its age profile. So that way you can look up and say, well, look, has the organisation got a problem? If, for example, you did a survey and you found that most of the employees in an organisation were aged between 25 and 40, and then there was a sort of a cliff where they fell off between 45 and 65, you'd say there's a problem. So I would say, why don't we start doing that? Have organisations reveal the age profile. But also, I think you've got to ask yourself, why are we doing it? Why are we assuming that because someone's older that they're no good at their job? I mean, if you look in the media, for example, you've got Ida Buttrose, the chair of the ABC, who's in her 70s, in her late 70s, and she was chosen as the best person for that job. You've got people like Sir David Attenborough still making extraordinary films in his 90s. I mean, we've got to recognise that just because you've got a bit of grey hair doesn't mean you're dead in the head.
And do you find there's further discrimination within that? I mean, is there a male-female divide, a white-collar,
Yes.
blue-collar divide?
Yes, I believe that most of the evidence shows that women have a more difficult time of it, particularly because they often leave the workforce to go and have children, or they might be caring for an older relative, and when they come back in, they find it extremely difficult to get work. In one of the case studies that was highlighted in your national survey was of a woman who said that not only did she lose her job and had trouble getting back into it while she was on Newstart, and I'll remind you that the largest group of people on Newstart in Australia today are those between 55 and retirement age. And the problem that you've got now is that those people are accessing their superannuation, if they've got a mortgage, to try and pay it off, and then they're wasting most of their savings before they even go onto Newstart, and by the time they get on Newstart, they've got real problems. And now we've pushed the pension age out to 67. I mean, it's already 66 and it's heading towards 67. So you've got a very big problem. Now, the Alliance for a Fairer Retirement System, and I was just recently appointed the chair of that, has put a submission into government, and we're saying that in this retirement income review, they should be looking at Newstart because it's interconnected with our retirement system. See, when you look at these problems, ageism, aged care, mature age workforce issues, they're all interconnected. Our economic system is an ecosystem, and if you have a problem in there where you've got one group of people being unfairly targeted and losing their jobs, that has repercussions all the way through the system to retirement incomes, to the ability to pay for aged care, the ability for people to actually maintain a mentally healthy lifestyle, because if you lose your job in your 50s and you spend years unemployed, that has big impacts on both your physical and mental health, and every survey has come out with that. So I think this is a wake-up call. I think it's brilliant that the ABC is doing this research and publishing it. Now I want to see governments, both at a state and federal level, actually start having active policies to ensure that they are not being ageist by revealing the age profile of their workforce, and perhaps the ABC could start as an example itself. We know that we've got a 77-year-old chair of the ABC. Let's have a look around the newsrooms and the rest and work out whether that's roughly the same as the community as well. I mean, that would be a good start, don't you think?
Fair call. Ian Henscke, Chief Advocate for National Seniors Australia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed.
And to understand how your attitudes and experiences compare to other Australians, visit abc.net.au/Australia Talks.